Number one, gentlemen, how many of you are firstborn sons? Raise your hands high. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of us, okay. 6. Oh, right, 7. Okay. There are 7 of us here. Pardon me? Well, here's where you're going to get questioned. What makes you so special? We were born first. What makes you so special?
The fact that they had a second brother like me.
And the defense rests. Go back to my This is not fair, Joe. You have an advantage over these guys. Asking you is like asking the Knicks to play St. Mary's Grammar School, although sometimes I want that working in the game. Firstborn son in Jewish culture, Jewish religious culture, is sacred to God. You are holy. There's a reason for that. It's a very special reason. Okay? Go back to your Bible. Now I'm going to ask you to lecture. What happens Passover night?
The angel of death passes over the firstborn of the Hebrews, and they're spared the plague.
And the firstborn of where dies?
The Egyptians.
The firstborn Egyptian son dies. That's the event of Passover. Remember this day, okay? So what happens? That was something that was burned into the memory of Jewish people. They were told to remember this always. The firstborn son was holy to God. His life belonged to God. And the family had to redeem that life. In other words, make a sacrifice of something to take that life back. Okay? Because when anything had to be redeemed, either you performed a sacrifice in its place, or whatever it was that wasn't being redeemed had to die. Of course, the child's not going to die. So an animal has to die in its place. That's why they're going to Jerusalem. Today's 40 days from Christmas, exactly. And it's one of the few days in the church year where we sort of break the pattern and we kind of put ourselves as if this were still 40 days from the birth of Christ. Okay? You have to be an old Roman Catholic to get the significance of this. So how many of you, first of all, are former Roman Catholics? Raise your hands high. Now, how many of you are former old Roman Catholics? Other than, no. All right, so by definition, how many of you remember the liturgy in Latin before the reforms of Vatican II? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, fine. Before the reforms of Vatican II, the Christmas season went for 40 days. It started Christmas Eve and it ended today, February 2nd, 40 days later. It was the Feast of the Presentation. What happened today, what we recreated, what we remember, are two things. Jewish couple gave birth to a child. That child, the firstborn son, is brought to temple, and prayers are prayed for this child. And they bring some small animal, some small token, which is given back to temple to technically, quote unquote, redeem the life of that child as a reminder that the life of a firstborn son is sacred. That's the first thing that happens. The second thing that happens is that the wife, the mom, you women are what are called purified. Before you crinkle up your nose and think I'm saying something nasty, I'm really not, okay? By giving birth, you are now sacred. You're something like a goddess, okay? Life literally has come from your bodies by giving birth. And for the next 40 days, you don't have to do anything in terms of family. Everything everyone must do for you. Your sole responsibility was to take care of yourself and your baby, and no cooking, no cleaning, no nothing. Everyone does for you. You were sacred. And the prayers of purification were the prayers that sort of welcomed you back down from that level so that you came back to the level with the rest of us, where you resumed your responsibilities as a wife and as a mom and as a regular member of the family. You needed to be purified because you are holy, because giving life belongs to God alone. And by giving birth, you actually touch God in that sense. So two things happen. The child is redeemed, and women are returned to normal. They are purified, to use the technical term. And what we're supposed to remember is that this particular baby starts making people react to him almost immediately. And that's what I'm really going to talk about today. The mother brings this child. They bring a couple of little animals. They give the animals to the temple, and they run into a holy man, somebody who has lived most of his life hoping for the redemption of his people, using that very important word. Okay? And he looks at the child and he says, "Thank you, God. I can die now because I know you're going to keep your word." He looks down, and as he takes the baby in his arms, it's almost like at this one moment, you have the people of the Testament to Israel, and the people who will become members of the covenant of Jesus Christ. We come together as one. And instead of a place of worship that would be holy, a place that would be God's dwelling place that we'd have to seek out and find and go to, we are reminded the encounter between God and humanity takes place within that child. He is the new temple when we worship, number one. Number two, this child is going to grow up, and he's not going to offer sacrifices to God. He is going to be the sacrifice to God. He's not going to go to a priest to pray. He is going to be our high priest. In this handing off, in this wonderful encounter between what is old and what is new. And in him, all the ancient prophecies will be fulfilled. You sang the Song of Simeon as a song of praise this morning. I read it as part of the gospel. Those of you who pray evening prayer, you know that's always part of each night. Lord, let your servant depart in peace according to your word. In the 2nd century, there was a poet. His name was Ephraim. He was from Syria. And he translates this a different way. He wrote a poem. Actually, he wrote a song. And he said that when Mary put the baby in Simeon's arms, the old man sang a lullaby. And the words of the lullaby really mean this. You have come, compassionate one, having pity on my old age, making my bones into shale in peace, because by you I will be raised out of the grave into paradise. He recognized who Jesus really was. But the old man turned around and he looked at his mother and he said, "You know what? This kid is going to divide people." Now, how many of you were here in a church somewhere for Christmas, whether it was here or elsewhere? Raise your hands. Okay? Now keep your hands up. All right? You all were, I know that. How many of you, in whatever church you were in, regularly saw people that you normally never see? Raise your hands. Trick question. Okay? Not making fun, but making a point. All right? It is very easy to have an affection for baby Jesus. Christmas brings out warmth in all of us. Having a relationship with baby Jesus, I mean, unless your name is King Herod and you're into killing your wives and babies, everyone loves baby Jesus, right? Okay? But the adult Jesus, that's different. The adult Jesus will walk the ground of Galilee and will say, "You've got to follow me. You've got to leave your nets and your father and your fishing business and bring people to God and fish for God. You've got to love your enemies. You have to do good to the people who mock you and think you're a fool. You've got to take up your cross each day. You've got to be joined to my journey and my suffering. And if you're really going to be my follower, you've got to be poor in spirit. You've got to hunger and thirst for righteousness and all those other wonderful things that sound so great when we read them that are really difficult to live. That's what it means to be a disciple. Loving baby Jesus, that's easy. Loving the adult Jesus, that's what we're called to do. And then if that isn't enough, he turns to the mother, says to Miriam, or as we say in English, Mary, he says, "You know what? Loving this child, being with this child, walking with this child, it's going to be like a sword cut your heart in two." Because he understood that sometimes being faithful to Christ brings great joy. It uplifts your spirit, it feeds you from within and brings you peace. And sometimes being a Christian just wears at your soul. It demands courage, it demands the strength that only God gives. And there is a cost to discipleship. And as the great German martyr Bonhoeffer said, grace is always free, but it's never cheap. So this morning we take a little time out, 40 days from Christmas, and we remind ourselves of two older people who wandered into a temple one morning. It sounds like the beginning of a joke, but it's not. And on this feast we're reminded that love is powerful and it is real, but love always has a cost. And that we are Simeon, and we are Hannah. We're the old couple. Christ has come to us. The question is, do we recognize Him? And more so,